What's going on, guys? Spazmattic here, back inside Destiny 2. In this video, I'm going to be covering the Wormgod Caress glitch with the throwing hammer on the Burning Maul super. So there's multiple different things you can use to stack the buff with the glitch. I'll be going over all the possible ways of buffing the glitch and how to actually do the glitch itself. So obviously, throwing hammer is a melee ability where you throw the hammer like that, and it does a lot of melee damage, and it comes back to you whenever you pick it up on the floor. You don't have to wait for it to recharge. And the Wormgod Caress is an exotic for the Titan, where melee kills increase melee damage, and it can stack up to 5 times. So first, I'm going to get 5 kills with the exotic, and then explain to you guys how it works. So you get the times 5. Once you get the times 5 on the Wormgod Caress, you want to immediately swap to a different armor piece. Obviously a gauntlet piece because it's a gauntlet piece exotic. So since I did that, I now have the times 5 buff with the Wormgod Caress. It's basically still there. It's just invisible because the timer basically never ran out, right? So I swapped armor to save the timer, and I still have the times 5 buff, it's just not visible. So obviously with the buff active, I can stack this with multiple different things. And first is the Solar Plexus. This will probably always be active because it's probably one of the better final perks in the artifact. And obviously Solar Plexus is decent because it increases damage of all solar melee abilities, while also gaining super energy from performing finishers with a solar subclass. But obviously the most important part is the first bit of text, increasing damage of all solar melee abilities. And since the throwing hammer is a solar melee ability, it stacks with the times 5 glitch with the Wormgod Caress. Next up, I want to put out is the Roaring Flames glitch with Telesto. Obviously Roaring Flames is the middle tree perk for Burning Maul. Kills with your solar abilities increase those abilities damage, and it stacks up to 3 times. And obviously with Telesto, as you can see here, shoot the floor, throw a grenade at it, and you get times 3. The Telesto shots count as enemies, so obviously this was a glitch before, and obviously you can do it again with the Roaring Flames, and that also stacks with the times 5 with the Wormgod Caress. Another buff or perk that stacks with this is the Nightmare Crusher. I'll show this on the 2 Nightmare Thralls in this Lost Sector. Obviously, Nightmare Crusher grants additional damage to your melee and grenade abilities against Nightmare bosses. This is basically any enemy that has a Nightmare in its name, I'm pretty sure. I was doing this with some LFG people a little bit ago in the Altar of Sorrow in Sorrow's Harbor on the moon. And you can basically kill the Altar of Sorrow boss in 2 hammer throws. And I got the Brutal Haste Triumph doing it that way, which is the Triumph for basically one-phasing the boss, rapidly defeat a tier 5 Nightmare boss. So that's pretty crazy. You can also stack on top of all that. You can also use 1-2 punch because obviously if you land all your shotgun pellets on an enemy, you increase your melee damage for a short time. And obviously since I don't have a primary 1-2 punch shotgun, I can't stack it with Roaring Flames with the Telesto glitch. So obviously if you had like a 1-2 punch primary, this would stack with everything else I listed. And last but not least, I think the only thing I haven't covered yet is Synthoceps. Synthoceps also works since I still have the buff. I can swap to Synthoceps. And obviously, Biotic Enhancements, the perk on the Synthoceps, increase melee lunge range and improve the melee and super damage when you're surrounded. So you want to get near some enemies with the Synthoceps. So when I get to some enemies, you'll see it pop up. I think believe it's 3 enemies in total to get it pop up. So I have Biotic Enhancements now, and I can swap back to the Wormgod Caress, and I'll have the Synthoceps buff on top of the times 5 buff on Wormgod Caress. So to show how it really works, for this next throwing hammer kill, I will have Solar Plexus, Roaring Flames times 3, Nightmare Crusher with times 5 Wormgod Caress, and I believe Synthoceps, I don't think I will because I think there's a time limit to it. But just for this kill, I have a guaranteed times 5, the Nightmare Crusher, Solar Plexus, and the Roaring Flames times 3. So I'll do that real quick. Get the Roaring Flames times 3. Throw my grenade at it. So I got the times 3, and I'll take one of these Nightmare Thrall and kill it in one shot with 160k damage. So yeah, it's pretty crazy against nightmares. It does more damage against nightmares than any other boss just because the Nightmare Crusher. Nightmare Crusher obviously doesn't work on enemies that aren't nightmares, so that obviously helps well. And it's really fun to use in Altar of Sorrow just because of a lot of enemies being nightmares in Altar of Sorrow. And another thing I forgot to mention is that when you get a kill, a melee kill with the Wormgod Caress, it basically overwrites the ×5 that you already had. So you have to, whenever you get a melee kill with the Throwing Hammer or a melee kill in general, doesn't have to be Throwing Hammer, just a basic punch, you want to swap armor back and forth like it just did there, because that will save the ×5 instead of overriding it and going back to ×0 and just getting rid of it. On top of all those buffs, you can also stack the Unstable Essence buff from Nightmares. So here, I'll get the Telesto Glitch to do the crazy amounts of damage. Or not. So I have the Unstable Essence now. Throw my grenade, get ×3. So yeah, 243k. That's just absurd. Stacking all that damage together, and that's without Synthoceps and the 1-2 punch buff as well. So you can also add 1-2 punch and the Synthoceps buff to that damage number and get an even higher number than what I just threw at that Nightmare Thrall, 243k. I think that's what it was. So it's just insane how big you can increase the buff on the Wormgod Caress, and I just want to put it out here just because of how insane it can be and how much damage it can actually do. So all in all, this glitch is pretty insane because you can stack so many things together. Going over all the buffs and perks that you can stack with each other are Solar Plexus, Roaring Flames ×3 with the Telesto 1-2 punch, and also stack all that if you have a primary 1-2 punch. I do not have one, so obviously I can't show that. Nightmare Crusher on Nightmare enemies. The Synthoceps if you get next to an enemy and swap back to Wormgod Caress with the ×5. You can also get the Unstable Essence from killing a Nightmare enemy that buffs damage to nightmares. And yeah, it's just insane. Obviously you guys saw I did the 243k on that Nightmare Thrall, and obviously you can do more with that, because more than that, because I didn't have Synthoceps or the 1-2 punch buff active at the same time. So hopefully you guys enjoyed this video and how to do the Wormgod Caress glitch inside of Destiny 2. If you guys enjoyed this video, don't forget to rate, comment, and subscribe, and I'll see you guys later back inside Destiny 2. Peace.